My name is Abina Johnson, and this is Focus on Liberia. Hit it! From Cape Mount to Cape Palmer, Mount Nimba to Atlantic Ocean, Obomi Hills to Bokonjre, to educate, elevate, and promote. Talk about home affairs, hey, in diaspora, current affairs, hey, reliable information, history, ooh, talking about culture, hey, politics, education, entertainment, business, sports, advertisement, articulation. Focus on Liberia. Focus on Liberia. Focus on Liberia. From Monday to Sunday.
Hello and welcome to Focus on Liberia. I'm Hassan is your hosting, and this is Roundtable Africa. Roundtable Africa is a program here dedicated to look into the issues of the continent of Africa. We are focusing on Cape Verde today. Very interesting country indeed. We are here to look into the history, analysis, that will inform you to know a little more about the history of Cape Verde. But we will be right back to get the show started. We have Comrade Mohammed Shari, who is the presenter. Jimmy and I will be asking some salient questions, and we will all learn about our brotherly country, Cape Verde. We will be right back.
At Focus on Liberia, we discuss everything Liberia, from education to politics, arts and culture, entertainment, agriculture, history, religion, family, and technology. Focus on Liberia uncovers and showcases the best of Liberia and shows the world the truth about Liberia. We educate, elevate, and promote all things Liberia. We conduct interviews, panel discussions, debates, and more. Tune in to Focus on Liberia on Facebook and YouTube and be a part of the stories that make up the news.
This is Focus on Liberia, and I am Dennis Jack.
And we are back with you. I'm Hassan Sincere. Jimmy Eastman joins us from the nation's capital. Jimmy, welcome. How you doing?
Yeah, glad to be here. Interesting topic today.
Indeed, it is interesting to learn about Cape Verde. I don't know how many persons listening to us know a thing or one or two about Cape Verde, but the research has been done by our presenter, Comrade Mohammed Shari, Comrade, who is joining us from the city of brotherly love and sisterly affection. How are you, brother?
I am wonderful, and I'm glad to be here so that we can talk about a very important African country that many don't know about.
And that's what makes the discussion yet to be very significant. A lot of us don't know anything about Cape Verde, which is an African country that is a significant piece of the continent of Africa. You've done your research, and you are here to help us to have a meaningful discussion that will provide information that will put us in the know about what an African country it is. So I know we have been talking about other African countries, doing analysis, looking at the political history, the culture, and political governance and all that. So why Cape Verde this time?
So just so people know, we're not a Debbie Downer here on Roundtable Africa. Roundtable Africa has looked at um, three bad democracies already. We've looked at Tanzania, we've looked at Cameroon, we've looked at Cote d'Ivoire. These are very imperfect democracies. At least two of those democracies are very awful democracies where the rulers are using force of arms and different tactics to eliminate the opposition, to silence opposition voices. So you have the ruling administrations in those three countries that we discussed previously holding elections, but those elections are not free or fair. So democracy is not about just about holding elections, which is one of the requirements that Cameroon is fulfilling, that Tanzania has fulfilled, that Cote d'Ivoire has fulfilled this year. They have held elections, but those elections were neither free nor fair. So they are, in my judgment, bad democracies. We've discussed them ad nauseum. So today we're going to discuss a good democracy, a very, very good democracy on the African continent. Forget Africa. One of the good, stable democracies anywhere around the world. And that country is called Cabo Verde or Cape Verde. The country officially wants to be known as Cabo Verde, but you're going to hear, I know the Cape Verdeans, whoever is going to watch this later on, they will have to forgive me because, I'm going to interchangeably use Cape Verde or Cabo Verde. It is a stable democracy. And for those who follow soccer, Cape Verde has qualified for the World Cup. So let's just keep that in perspective. We haven't qualified, after 100 and some odd years. We haven't qualified. Of course, World Cup hasn't been around for 100 years, but I'm just saying that since the inception of World Cup soccer, we haven't qualified. Here's a very small country that has qualified, but that's not what we're talking about today. We're talking about democracy in Cape Verde. So what we're going to start with is the basis of the evolution of the Cape Verdean state.
And comrade, before we get to the evolution, you just share that Cape Verde has a democracy that can be compared to what falls in your category of a good democracy in the world. So if you are to put Cape Verde in a category of other countries that are practicing democracy to your acceptable standard, what are the countries you will compare Cape Verde with, or you put in the same category as Cape Verde in terms of democracy in the world?
So, Anthony, after here, we will be talking about Mauritius, another stable democracy. We will also be talking about Botswana, another stable democracy. So there are good democracies in some places in Africa. They're not all bad. So these three countries particularly that we will talk about, and we're doing this to educate our people, right? Our mission here at FOL is to inform, entertain, and educate. I think this educational value is tremendous because generations, people who are going to watch this at some time later will learn from this, will learn that there is a country called Cape Verde. It is an island nation, and it has one of the most stable democracies anywhere around the world. It has a very large GDP, never mind its size. The stability has allowed Cape Verde to be stable and socially stable. You've never heard of any civil wars. You've never heard of, ethnic frictions that you see in other countries around Africa. You've never heard of this sort of political manipulation, this sort of corruption that we talk about that have permeated not only West Africa, but all around Africa. You never hear of any such thing when it comes to Cape Verde. They respect their constitution. They respect the will of the Cape Verdean people. And that is what distinguishes Cape Verde from other African countries.
Thank you. Jimmy? Jimmy, are you here?
Sorry,
Oh.
there. I don't know. I got muted. So, yeah,
Okay.
Thank you for that introduction, Mohammed. A lot of times when we begin to talk about the progress of a nation, the development of a nation, we ask ourselves, what kind of minerals does a nation have? Do they have forests? Do they have strategic commodities? But here is a country, Cape Verde, that it doesn't have any of those things. The only thing they are relying on is ideas, education, and governance. So, how come they just gotten the independence? I believe it was 1975, right?
Yes.
So why a country who just got the independence the other day can espouse ideas as their main collateral, and yet we 100 and some more years old have yet to espouse ideas as our motivating force?
So to just start off, it's an excellent question. The evolution of the Cape Verdean state. So in the 1400s, the Portuguese took over this area. They always, the Europeans go elsewhere and they say, we discovered this. So written accounts prior to that are rare, if not impossible to find. But we know that the Portuguese visited this coast. First of all, it's an archipelago. So what is an archipelago? An archipelago is a chain of islands in a body of water, usually a sea or ocean. In this case, Cape Verde, the islands that comprise the Cape Verdean state or the Republic of Cape Verde are located in the Atlantic Ocean off the West African coast, and there are a group of 10 islands that make up Cape Verde. The largest island is called Santiago, on which the capital Praia is located. And so the Portuguese arrived here in the 1400s, and by 1450 to 1460, they established a real foothold, and this was an area now, a hub, if you will, for the slave trade, the transatlantic slave trade. So all of our people, our African brothers and sisters who were captured from places like current day Guinea-Bissau, as far as, Guinea-Conakry and some other locations like of that nature, were brought to the island of Cape Verde to work for the Portuguese, and many others were sold to slave traders who then transported these people, these captured Africans, to places like Brazil, Argentina, or to the United States, and some other places. And so, after, they had a footprint there for about 500 years. The Portuguese I'm referring to now, for about 500 years before independence in 1974. So it is a very interesting history. So the next thing that we're going to come to now is how was that independence obtained from the Portuguese? So it was, so colonial Cape Verde, it comes out of this sort of European exploitation of the African people, of the African resources. And so you find that footprint, in Cape Verde.
Okay.
If I will continue there,
Mhm.
also is that so during this time, so this is what you're looking at, a group of islands in the Atlantic Ocean, off the West African coast. So this is around Senegal. So it's a relatively short distance from Senegal to Cape Verde by boat, and they're in off the West African coast, and it's a group of 10 islands altogether that comprise Cape Verde.
All right. Thank you, comrade. So, my question here now is, what structural and historical factors have contributed to Cape Verde's consistent ranking as one of Africa's strongest democracies? Because, I really want to know, these structural and historical factors. Because when you look at Liberia, anytime there are issues, we point to, oh, this was not done. We have not gotten this right historically. This structure is not the best, and so on and so forth. So, what structure and historical factors actually contributed to them being ranked as one of the best democracies in the world and having to be in an African country?
So before we get there, before we
Mhm.
get ahead of ourselves, so
Mhm.
let's talk about the struggle
Okay.
for independence.
For independence.
This
Yeah.
started
Mhm.
in the late 1950s.
Mhm.
Amilcar Cabral was born in 1924 in Guinea-Bissau, of Cape Verdean parents. So keep in mind, Guinea-Bissau and Cape Verde, there are people, they are one and the same. So you cannot talk about Cape Verde without talking about Guinea-Bissau, because the Portuguese colonized both countries, both territories, countries, and they transported Africans, captured Africans from mainland Guinea-Bissau to Cape Verde. So you can understand why Amilcar Cabral, when he formed the PAIGC, or the African Party for the Independence of Cape Verde and Guinea-Bissau, Amilcar Cabral conjoined the two struggles. So basically, what Cabral was saying is that the independence of Guinea-Bissau is also linked to the independence of Cape Verde. So the PAIGC was fighting for the independence of both countries. Cabral was an agronomist who studied in Portugal. He was very educated, intellectual, a revolutionary. And so after his studies, he came back and worked for the colonialists. For some others, that would have been sufficient to work for the colonial power, and you're making all this money. You part of the upper middle class. It would have been sufficient for him to have a good life. But that wasn't Cabral. Cabral was a revolutionary. He was dissatisfied with the Portuguese encroachment and Portuguese oppression of the African masses. And so him and others formed the PAIGC in 1956. And that slide, one of the slides that I put up, one of
Mhm.
the information that I sent over, as
Mhm.
I mentioned 1959, but it's actually 1956 when the PAIGC was formed in Guinea-Bissau. And a little later, Cabral moved to Conakry, Guinea, when Sekou Touré was president of Guinea. Sekou Touré was the revolutionary leader of Africa. Not much is mentioned about Sekou Touré's revolutionary credentials, but he was a fighter for African causes. He allowed the PAIGC to settle in Conakry, and they had their headquarters in Conakry. And Guinea provided logistics, training, and those sort of things to PIGC insurgents, who then started an insurgency, an anti-colonial campaign against Portugal, against the Portuguese colonial army, somewhere around 1962 to 1963. About 9,000 PAIGC African insurgents attacked the 35,000 strong Portuguese colonialist troops in Guinea-Bissau. And in about 2 years, the PAIGC had captured more than half of Guinea-Bissau. They had the majority of the population under their control. So in essence, the PAIGC defeated the Portuguese and gained their independence through their own blood and sweat with the assistance of revolutionary leaders in Africa, Sekou Touré primarily, who gave the PAIGC a base. So they had these bases in Conakry, because if you look at Guinea, Guinea-Conakry is bordering Guinea-Bissau. So, you know, it was very easy to use that territory as a conduit to attack the Portuguese. And Sekou Touré paid for this because the Portuguese in 1970 attacked Guinea-Conakry with the objective of murdering Sekou Touré and overthrowing his regime. So a seaborne attack in November 1970 was launched by the Portuguese to kill Sekou Touré. Sekou Touré's Sekou Touré's house basically was bombed, and you know the prison compounds where Portuguese soldiers were held, because the PIGC captured a lot of them and brought them to Conakry and incarcerated them in Conakry. So those areas were attacked in Guinea-Conakry. The radio station was attacked. You know, vital installation, the military barracks was attacked by the Portuguese and their backers. And they thought that Sekou Touré had died, but you know, somehow, some way, Sekou Touré survived. Amilcar Cabral survived, and so that was a big blow for the Portuguese army. And Sekou Touré didn't relent; he continued to support the PAIGC up through their independence. And so Cabral was eventually killed by the Portuguese through the work of an agent who killed Cabral in 1973. And the same year, the PAIGC declared independence for Guinea-Bissau. And so this is sort of how Guinea-Bissau, because you cannot talk about Cape Verde without talking about Guinea-Bissau. This is how, first, Guinea-Bissau gained its independence. And a year later, even though the Portuguese did not recognize the 1973 declaration, but they later conceded in 75 to officially recognize Guinea-Bissau in 1974. And in 1975, Cape Verde then gained its independence from Portugal. While Cabral did not live to see the day of independence, his brother Louis Cabral became the first president of Guinea-Bissau. Louis Cabral actually visited Monrovia, I think in 76, when Torber built the Cabral housing estate on the old road and named this Cabral housing estate for Amilcar Cabral, this great African leader, this African patriot. And so Louis Cabral visited Monrovia, I believe it was in 76. There are documents, declassified documents to that effect of what Torber's role as well in the Guinea-Bissau struggle for independence. Topman Torber, but Torber especially, recognizing that the independence of one country was not enough. And so Liberia was a part of this struggle. So it must be noted that Liberia was a part of the struggle to liberate Guinea-Bissau from the yoke of colonialism. And so Liberia played a part. So we are discussing this today as a tribute also to leaders in Liberia who play a big part in the liberation of Guinea-Bissau and Cape Verde.
Thank you. And my question was on the structural and historical factors that contributed to Cape Verde's consistent ranking as Africa's strongest democracy.
So yes, I was going to get to that as well. So the reason, so in 1975, when Cape Verde gained independence, Aristides Pereira, who was a senior leader of the PAIGC, then took over. He became the first president of Cape Verde. And both PAIGC branch in Guinea-Bissau and PAIGC branch in Cape Verde, they were one and the same. So the goal was to unite both countries politically so that they become a single country. So Cabral wasn't interested in dividing these two countries. So in 75, when Aristides Pereira became president, he ruled as a one-party state till 1990. So somewhere in 1990. First, there was a coup in Guinea-Bissau in 1980. And because of that coup, the PAIGC branch in Cape Verde severed ties, political ties with the PAIGC branch in Guinea-Bissau. So basically, Guinea-Bissau became a mess, right? And Cape Verde ascended. Guinea-Bissau, it is what it is right now. As you can see, Jimmy and I talked about this the other day. So we're not going to go into that right now, a lot of that right now. So we're going to stay with Cape Verde. So in 1991, with the wind of change, with the wind of democracy blowing through Africa, in 1990, Guinea-Bissau transformed to a multi-party democracy, and the first multi-party election was held in January 1991. The opposition MPD, the Movement for Democracy, won the parliamentary election. The parliamentary election was won by the MPD overwhelmingly, defeating the PAIGC in Cape Verde in 1991. Keep in mind, at this time now, the PAIGC in Cape Verde had changed their name. They dropped Guinea-Bissau out of the name to say PAICV, the Party for the Independence of Cape Verde, because now they've severed all political ties with the PAIGC in Guinea-Bissau because of that military coup. And so in 1991, the opposition MPD, the Movement for Democracy, overwhelmingly defeated the ruling PAICV. And in February of 1991, there was a presidential election. The opposition candidate also defeated the ruling party incumbent, Aristides Pereira. And so you ask about structure, you ask about what contributed to that. I will argue that the democracy, first of all, democracy in Cape Verde is very young. So they didn't have this long-standing autocracy, right? So for about 15 years or so, it was a one-party state. And right after that, it became a multi-party democracy. And this is what it is up to this time. The other factor, I guess you could say, is the size of the country. It's very small. It's sort of homogeneous. You have very few ethnic troubles. The ethnic groups are the Creoles, who are ancestors of the African people, and the Portuguese. They are called Creoles on the island. They constitute over 70%, about 71% of the population. Then you have the African ethnic groups, the Balantes, the Fulanis, the Mandinga people. You have those that constitute 28% of the population of Cape Verde. And then you have Europeans who are also citizens, Portuguese, you have Portuguese, Italians, and French people who are also citizens of Cape Verde, constitute 1% of the population. So there's that diversity. So among the ethnic groups, there's this sort of cohesion. There's not talk about, well, my region and this region and that region. There's always respect for the Constitution. So structurally, they have a very good Constitution that's respected, that's accepted by the Cape Verdean people. They also have a system of governance where you have the semi-presidential system of government. So all powers is not in the presidency. So you have this power spread out between the presidency and parliament. So the legislature, you have the prime minister, you have the president. They are both powerful people. So they are both elected, right? So you have the president who is elected directly by the people, and you have the prime minister who's selected by parliament, appointed by the president. So you have this dynamic. And presidential succession is not after the president, prime minister, it's the president of the National Assembly who's next in line to secession. So power is really, really distributed across the board. So you don't have a very powerful president that you have in Liberia. They don't have a vice president. So in Liberia, you have what? You have a president, an all-powerful president. You have a vice president who's already calling the president his father. Their relationship here, they're not my president, they're my father. I mean, these are the things, these are problems already for it.
Yeah, but may I ask you something there? I think you're striking a very strong point, because one of the purposes of exploring successful African nations is to see how we can correct our course in Liberia, adopt some good things about their democracy so that it can help guide our democracy. And one thing emphasized here, excuse me, is that their constitution is sacred. They believe in it, they abide by it. But we constantly see manipulation of constitutions in Africa, and in trying to consolidate power. If they're not trying to consolidate power, they're trying to get themselves reelected for 4 and 5 times more than what the Constitution stipulates. So one of our problems is that the paper we say we will live by, the Constitution, the govern, what we're talking about, we're talking about, right? Why we don't have policies to govern, because the paper we're supposed to live by, we don't respect it.
Right.
And that once we undermine the Constitution, we undermine the rule of law, and we undermine our progress in itself.
Yeah, I think it's a commentary you just made, and which is brilliant. And I think from the very beginning, Comrade Sharif mentioned that when he was doing his intro, where we're coming from and coming to Cape Verde. Comrade, for those who are listening, I'm going to display the map of Cape Verde. Yes. So that you can discuss a little bit of geography, the location, what countries are, is important for our audience for them to know. Absolutely. So yeah, Elias.
So this is so you see that there are little dots. You don't even see it. It's hard to even see. There are little dots out here in the middle of almost like in the middle of the ocean. Some sitting somewhere. So this is off the coast of Senegal. So between Senegal and Mauritania. So it's closer to Senegal and Mauritania. They are located in the Atlantic Ocean. It's a group of islands. 10 islands make up the Republic of Cape Verde. The largest island among that group of 10 islands is called Santiago. Santiago is where the capital, Praia, is located. The Cape Verdean capital is called Praia. And that's why it's called archipelago. An archipelago for students of geography is a group of islands, a chain of islands surrounded by a body of water, usually a sea or an Atlantic, an ocean. So in this case, it's the Atlantic Ocean that surrounds all of these islands. So their neighbors, I guess you could say, is the sea. You turn around north, south, west, they are bordered by the Atlantic Ocean. So they're sitting there by themselves, trouble-free. They have no trouble. So look at this, beautiful, very, very beautiful. And the beauty of the Cape Verdean state, the beauty of the Republic of Cape Verde is the reason why the economy, usually service sector, people visit this, people, Europeans, Africans, people go to visit Cape Verde. They have beautiful beaches and whatnot. They may not have these natural resources like oil or all these different things. but they have a large, service sector. Their GDP is larger than Liberia. Liberia is a bigger, older country than Cape Verde, but Cape Verde has a bigger, massive GDP. I think Liberia's GDP per capita is about $1,000. And Cape Verde, we're talking about $4,000 to $5,000 GDP per capita. Cape Verde is very small. It's 4,000 square miles. Liberia is 43,000 square miles. Cape Verde is about 550,000 people. Liberia is over 5 million people. So think about that. Liberia is very massive as compared to this small, very small country. And yet this country is very successful. Cape Verde has been able to eliminate malaria. They don't talk about malaria now. Liberia, we're still talking about malaria 176, 178, whatever, 180 perhaps years later. I don't care to know right now, but all I know is that Cape Verde seemed to be very successful. From all the evidence that we can produce is that Cape Verde is very successful. I mean, when you compare them to Liberia, they will leave us in the rear view mirror. And so it is important that we study Cape Verde, learn from Cape Verde, the Cape Verdean experience, and apply that to our own democracy, our own imperfect democracy, our own weak democracy. So don't talk about going to Singapore. When you talk about going to Singapore, you can go right there to Cape Verde, off the African coast. You don't have to go to Singapore to learn about their democracy. You can stay in Africa and learn from Cape Verde. Send students to Cape Verde, send politicians to Cape Verde. Let them learn from our African brothers and sisters in Cape Verde how to run a government and how to run a stable state.
Comrade, thank you. Jimmy raised something earlier. I think it's significant for the discussion. Jimmy had mentioned that if you look at Cape Verde in terms of natural resources compared to Liberia, practically they have nothing. They are in the middle of the ocean, as you described, talking about the geography there. And another piece I want to put there for you to give us a clear analysis that if you look in the countries like those one in the Bahamas, there's weather issue there. But I have not heard about any disaster in Cape Verde when they change of land, now island, forming a country. I've not heard anything like that.
Right.
So talk about resources wise, whether they have any or not, and then the fact that they are prone to the sea, but we have not heard any major disaster. If you compare that to even Japan has been threatened by tsunami and all that, we don't get that.
Right. It's like we haven't heard anything, right? It's like God is with them, right? Like those believe in God. So yeah, so they are sitting there. Look, having said that though, they have had drought, right? They have had drought, and Cape Verde, rainfalls, not many rainfalls, so they're not blessed with a lot of rainfalls. They also have had a volcanic eruption. I believe on the island of Santiago somewhere. There's that going on. Drought, occasional drought. So therefore, they don't have a large agricultural base. So most, they have large import of food because of that, because of drought, because of all the rainfalls and stuff like that. And so they have those challenges. They have their own challenges. But for the most part, Cape Verde has been, the first thing, Anthony, you want to do is establish a stable form of administration, political leadership. Then comes everything else. But, if you're a very old country, a very old Liberia, I don't care, a very old, Zaire or, Congo or something like that, a big, massive country with all the wealth, and you have these corrupt bureaucrats and stuff like that, they cannot control anything. They can't even defend their own country in the Congo. And when you talk about Liberia, we have everything in the world. God has endowed this country of Liberia, but at the same time, we have bad leaders and terrible leaders. And in Cape Verde, contrast that with Cape Verde, you have good leaders, you have a good democracy. And because you have a good democracy, you have stability. The people live longer. Life expectancy in Cape Verde is higher than Liberia. So Liberian people need to learn from Cape Verde. So those who are watching this need to, learn from this. If they ever, take an advice. Look, Anthony, the the members of the National Assembly in Cape Verde are elected for a 5-year term. Every 5 years, there's an election. What it is in Liberia, 9 years. Like, people can sit there and die. So not in Cape Verde. The president is 5-year term, and you've had this rotation of leadership in Cape Verde, where these people, the opposition will defeat the ruling administration, and there's no qualm, nothing, and everyone just goes away, right? There was an election in the early 2000s where the margin in this presidential race was something like 30, something like 35. That was the margin. There was no protest. The defeated candidate just went away, and the administration continued.
That is interesting. Let me come to my next question here.
Let me push in a quick question before you.
All right, give me
some claim, or some would attribute some of the environment or situation in Cape Verde to a strong diaspora influence. In other words, they're not as African as other African countries because of the strong European. In fact, there was a amalgamation of different. I understand Jewish people were there, Italian, all people from British and all. And because of that strong influence, they're not very African. And
so people are inferring that Africans are incapable of those kinds of values. This is far from the.
Well, this is an argument. Yeah,
it's very antithetical to everything that we stand for. For example, these are African people. Keep in mind, when the Portuguese, went to Cape Verde in the 1400s, they're claiming that they were the first to discover. Yeah. They always discover somewhere, right? We discovered this, but people were already there. So what it is that all of these people, I just told you, 70% of Cape Verdeans are African, have African and Portuguese ancestry. They're mixed. You have also a significant portion of the population, about 30% of the population, that are the Balante people, the Mandinga people, the Fulanese, those kinds of populations. So you have a significant African population. The ethnic cohesion, you have to understand that, is one thing that we don't find in other countries. So I don't think particularly that the reason for them being what they are is because of the presence, because of European presence. Look, so in the mid 1970s, there was a military coup in Portugal. It's called the Carnation Revolution, where the dictators in Portugal were overthrown. So Portugal had a terrible form of government. So if people are arguing, if the argument is that Cape Verdeans, because of their proximity to the Portuguese, it's the reason why they are this way, I will push back on that to say, what about Salazar? Salazar, who was a dictator of Portugal for several years. What about all these Portuguese dictators who ruined the Portuguese state for several years? And the military had to come in to depose those guys, to get them out of power, because they had destroyed Portugal. for a very, very long time. So no, I disagree with the fact that, because they're doing so well, it has to be some kind of European connection. It has to be European influence. In fact, they kicked out the Europeans. That was what Amilcar Cabral wanted to do. And unfortunately, he didn't live to see the fruit of his labor, but it finally happened in the year that he died. So I will argue that this is all of Amilcar Cabral's dream for a stable Guinea-Bissau and Cape Verde.
Thank you.
What Cabral was doing, he would go to the villages. The PAIG should go to villages. He would capture a place, and they would train these people. He was an agronomist, so they would train these people how to make farm, rice fields and peanut fields and different things of that nature, how to grow their own food to be self-sufficient. So this is all part of the plans that Cabral put in place. Unfortunately, Guinea-Bissau didn't incorporate a lot of this, but Cape Verde did.
And comrade, let's talk about local government, something that is a huge challenge in Liberia. Dennis can become superintendent now. Unfortunately, I can become superintendent of ground crew. Even if we got it from Boca, we might actually fail because the support, the structure, So my question simply is that, so how has decentralization affected local governance and citizen engagements across the island of Cape Verde?
Decentralization. So in terms of decentralization, elections, there are three stages of election. And your question is very profound. So they have the legislative election, they have presidential election, they have municipal election. In Liberia, when was the last time that you have municipal election? So you have these local people that are elected. So everything is about the choice of the people. So you have a 72 members of the National Assembly. These are your lawmakers. And Liberia, you really have more than that. So they have a unicameral legislature. They don't have this, the senator so-and-so, honorable so-and-so. They don't have that. They have a unicameral legislature, 72 members who are elected for a 5-year term of office, and they can go for re-election. And so that's what you have. And so what you also have, as I mentioned earlier, is that depending on, the votes of, whoever gathers the most members in parliament after an election, will nominate a prime minister. So if the Movement for Democracy has the parliamentary majority, they will nominate the prime minister. They do not appoint the prime minister. The president then formally appoints the prime minister. The president basically follows the leadership in the National Assembly, because if your party wins the majority, I don't care what the president feels about it, the president has to appoint that prime minister nominated by the National Assembly, because that is the will of the people. So everything is very divided evenly along those lines. It's not a dominant party. You had a situation the other day where the president's party, and many of us believe in Liberia, with the acquiescence of the president, remove a speaker. You don't have that in Cape Verde. You don't have any such thing. You've never had that in Cape Verde. You've never heard about that. It's not in line with what they do. They have respected their constitution, they honor their constitution, and they accept the will of the people. And that's how they've been able to be stable all these years later.
So let us talk about challenges. I know you mentioned the issue of the weather, the ocean there, but I want us to talk about, are there economic pressures? Are there some climate vulnerability? What's about youth empowerment? What are some of the domestic challenges and economic challenges that they face?
the main vulnerability is the occasional drought. Rainfall is scarce. So that is a vulnerability. And another vulnerability, which is more linked to that, is they can't, they can't grow more food. Fortunately for them, they have a very small population. But if they could grow more of their own food, then it'll be not only a good thing for them, but they'll be able to export because of that stability. And so they're not able to do that right now, because because of the drought, because of these geographical conditions. And so they're also another area of vulnerability, and they're prone to a volcano, but there hasn't been a volcano eruption for decades. I haven't heard of one. I didn't, during the course of my research, I didn't see any in the last half century. So that is something that, even though that's something that they think about, but, it hasn't happened in the last half century, I don't think. But yeah, they too have their own vulnerabilities. And in terms of youth empowerment, you talk about youth empowerment. What better way to empower the youth than to educate your young people? So they have over 70% literacy rate. I think it's more close to 80%. I sound a little corrected, but the last number that I saw was over 70% literacy rate. So you have a very educated population in Cape Verde. Contrast that with some of the countries on the mainland. Since I'm a Liberian, I'm going to bring it back to Liberia. What's our literacy rate? What is it? Jimmy, what is it now?
I will do my research, but I think it might be
I would have to do some research
30%,
on
30%.
I don't want to guesstimate, but
I think it's 30.
There's something I want to ask you.
Hold on, Jimmy. Concerning the literacy rate, I just did a quick search here. I mean, this is just a quick research I did. It's not been verified yet. So those listening to us, don't bet on it. It said 88.7% of people age 15 and above. Yeah. And it said the overall literacy rate is 91%.
All right, so I understand.
Literacy or literacy?
Literacy
rate. They said the latest, the research said the latest, and according to my research here, they're quoting UNESCO and World Bank data that it is 88.47% of people age 15 and above. And then when they put everybody, the entire population is 91.0%, which is 91%. Yeah. And then it put it into categories, right? It's a 94% for males and 87% for females.
Well,
that is impressive.
I got one report here from the UNESCO, and this was done 2017. And it shows Liberia's adult literacy rate, just like you say, age 15 and above, is about 48.3%. Meaning fewer than half adults can read and write with understanding. Fewer than half.
Right.
Okay.
That is terrible.
I'm telling you. And that is supposed to be some kind of improvement, because before the civil war in Liberia, I'm not trying to get into Liberia now before we get distracted, but we were talking about 25%. We were talking 25% before the Civil War. And right there in Cape Verde, you're talking about an African country that's already hitting the 90% mark in literacy. So my thing now is, why don't we study from these people? Why don't we go out there, send a parliamentary delegation, send some kind of delegation, government delegation, send people down there, researchers and stuff like that, and study the Cape Verdean experience, apply this experience to your own country, apply their democracy, their democratic experiment to your own country. There's no shame in doing that, but they rather go to some European countries. They rather talk about some European countries. They rather go somewhere else to spend our money. They rather spend, the largesse or empty trips and stuff like that. I think it's important that, in Liberia and other countries, that they learn from places like Cape Verde, places like Botswana, places like Mauritius, especially Cape Verde. Cape Verde is right next door. It's almost, you go through Senegal and you take a boat and you go over there and you're already there if you don't want to fly. If you just want to go there, take a nice trip from Dakar, and you go over there and you study what they're doing better, what's working for them, and you apply that to your own experience. That's what good leaders do. That's what visionaries do. But we don't have visionaries in Liberia. We have corrupt individuals who are just sitting there, stealing our resources. That's all they're doing.
There's an argument also, Mr. Sharif, that democracy is supposed to be a cultural thing and not an event. If you notice that our elections, winner takes all. If you lose, you cease to exist. You're taking. You're not in position.
Right.
You'll see the men pushing wheelbarrow.
Yes.
You're radical. So, and with them, it's more of a administrative function. Why are we placing so much on, winner takes all, and we instead of making it just a continuation, of building the country?
Yeah, and if you look at the country under review tonight, Jimmy, is that they don't have this all-powerful presidency. So maybe that's a paradigm that's worth studying. They don't have this all-powerful presidency. They have a semi-presidential system where you have the president who's the head of state, you have the prime minister who's the head of government. So even though the president will formally appoint the prime minister, because the president really, constitution, he has no choice. As long as the ruling party in the National Assembly, in the legislature, nominates a prime minister, the president formally appoints this prime minister. The prime minister then turns around and nominate other cabinet ministers who are then formally appointed by the president. So the president cannot fire the prime minister. Otherwise, there will be a constitutional crisis. There might be a vote of no confidence, right? So the prime minister and the president are equally powerful in this country, so that power is distributed evenly, almost evenly, because you can't have anything 100% even, right? But almost evenly, power is distributed. What do we have in Liberia? So I have to take a comparative look at Liberia. You have the president of the Republic of Liberia. You have the vice president. You have the speaker. You have the head of the president pro tempore. You have the chief justice, all of whom all their loyalty, all their position, their rise to this all-powerful president. So if the president sneezes, the rest of them are in trouble. So that is what we have. You have a vice president, as I mentioned earlier, who says to the Liberian people, the president, he's not my president, he's my father. The relationship between us is not presidency. He's my father. No, he's not your father. He is not. You don't, your birth certificate doesn't show that Joseph Boakai is your father. So he's not. And I get what you're trying to say in the African context, but this is where we always have problem in our own democracy, because our presidents are all powerful, our leaders are all powerful, they cannot be questioned. And the new thing now is, once they get there, they want a subservient legislature, and so that they will remove, the first thing they do now, they remove a speaker. Some of them will remove an associate justice, just so that every case that goes to the Supreme Court before the court, that the court agrees with them. So I would tell you this: Liberian democracy is in trouble. It's in peril.
Comrade,
Having looked at Cape Verde, and you juxtapose what's going on in Cape Verde to Liberia, you're going to come away with a different mindset, as I have come away with a different mindset. Because I'm sitting here, I juxtapose the two countries, and there's an ocean of difference between us, because you have one very small country that's wealthy and stable, very stable, and you have this very old country that has had a long-standing history with democracy, and yet they continue to say our democracy in Liberia is fragile. Why? The question is, why is it fragile?
And comrade, I will add to what you just said. You have a country called Liberia that is sitting on billions of dollars.
Tell me about it.
If not billion, trillions of dollars. Then you have another country that is sitting on trouble.
Right.
It is on top of the Atlantic Ocean. Anything is possible.
Yes.
God forbid, right? And now they've been able to self-govern. They've been able to use ideas to provide leadership that has led to a literacy rate of 98% overall. How did it do it? So you are right. We have to learn something from them here. And it's high time our leaders start going to China. They stop going to Japan. Maybe they should start visiting our brothers and sisters right there in Africa and learn something from them when they should be learning something from us, unfortunately. Then another point you mentioned that I want to also emphasize, you said, and somebody might take it lightly, when the vice president said, oh, the president is like my father. He's a father to me. And he said, no, it's not. And, we're not looking at the African context. We're talking about governance. We're talking about leadership here. Okay? And I will go further to that. That is why it is the all-powerful president. The president is never wrong. If you criticize the president for doing something bad, you're being looked at ugly, when in fact what you're saying is in the interest of the country. More so, these are the very things that president had criticized before. We are talking about President Bouaka now with this villa, and the Unity Party people, they are quiet.
Right.
I don't know, they expect me to be quiet. I'm not a quiet guy when it comes to accountability. No, don't expect me to do so. Why are those in government not saying anything that we cannot be doing this? This is an embarrassment. But
thank you, Anthony.
Yeah,
thank you. What you just said, I really want to thank you, because that is why we will not go anywhere. Because as soon as the other one, you were criticizing it the other day, you were condemning it the other day. Then soon when your man go there, when your candidate, you close your mouth against wrongdoing. You cannot selectively apply the law like that. You're not going to go anywhere. If it was wrong yesterday, it's wrong today. And if you don't, why are you not demanding transparency? The legislature. We asked the public works minister about the FOIA project. He couldn't tell. He said, I refer to the executive. We asked the minister information. He gave us information that could not be corroborated. Then finally, we're hearing now that it's a joint project when the Emerald and the Mountain River Union Secretary has denied any participation in it. Why can't we get transparency? And then you think we're running a country? No, we're not.
Yeah.
It's a sham.
Yeah.
It's a sham.
Yeah.
And talking about political governance further, and Comrade, you mentioned this, we're not deviating, but we are painting a picture so that we learn from the people, right?
And apply to our own experience.
The issue of the speaker that you've been so strong on here is cardinal to political leadership in our country. You had a Frontier as speaker who was literally in collaboration with President Bouaka to lead the country. Right. He was no threat to Unity Party. I mean, they were getting almost 110% of everything they wanted.
Correct.
And they launched this onslaught, political onslaught, and they had us down for about a year, just for us to get a coup. Now, who is going to He's in Hapa right now.
Right.
He's talking to the people. He is doing the work of the representatives of these counties.
Yeah.
That's what the speaker is doing right now.
Yeah.
And that's why we had to elect him. Let me let you come in,
Yeah.
comrade.
Yeah. So, you know, our speaker, you know, current speaker, is the result of political manipulation. His rise to that position is the result of a political manipulation, of strong arming, intimidating, and terrorizing the opposition, quite frankly, and making sure the president, making sure that his will is done. And so again, I want to go back and juxtapose that with the Cape Verdean people. The Supreme Court spoke loudly. The Supreme Court disagreed with Cohen's proclamation that he was the speaker. Remember how they held the country hostage for several months? And the Supreme Court spoke. Justice Ewers spoke. She rendered the majority decision. I believe it was majority decision.
Yeah.
There was a dissension, but there was a majority decision. And she spoke for the majority. She basically said that Cohen is not the speaker. What did Boaka say? Boaka disagreed with it. He did not apply the Supreme Court ruling. That's the president of the Republic of Liberia, who campaigned on the rule of law. It's a joke. Campaign on the rule of law. And yet, he was tested. The Kofa episode that was created by the Unity Party, and we lost all kinds of friends, and you guys know that. Even on our own platform, we lost people because they disagreed with our condemnation, our critique of this government, of their government. We lost friends. We lost people. But some of us don't care. We don't care one bit because the shoes is on the other foot now. So they're defending the Unity Party. And so when that happened, Boaka, what did Boaka do? He disrespected the Supreme Court's decision and went with his person because he wanted the speaker to be a member of his party. So he wanted to control the legislature. So therefore, he controls the legislature. He already controls the Supreme Court. He has the executive mansion. You're right. Kofa was no threat to him at all. Again, juxtapose. I go back to my word, I go back to the theme of juxtaposition. Again, you juxtapose that with what's transpiring in Cape Verde. It's different. I just told you that there was a candidate, I forget what election it was, that lost by a very small margin. If that had happened in Liberia, we would be in trouble. And this margin I'm talking about was less than 100 people. It was probably less than 50 people. And this was a presidential election. It wasn't no legislative election or a municipal election. This was a national election, a heavily contested national election where the losing candidate lost by less than 50 votes. And the winner, the loser, congratulated the winner. And the transition was done smoothly. Will we have that in Liberia? Probably not. Probably not. Not with this Unity Party government. I don't trust them now when it comes to political manipulation. I thought George Weah was bad as far as governance, but he showed us something. He showed us that, you can stand down and fight another and live to fight another day. I would like the Unity Party to show me that in 2029. I don't know if they can. I don't know if they can, because what they've shown me with the speaker debacle was something that they started. They've shown me something different. They show me their true colors, I think. And then they went and burned the Capitol building. Somebody went and burned the Capitol building, and they put that on the opposition. Right now, where is that investigation going? We don't know where that investigation is going. Again, when you compare that to what's going on in our sisterly Republic of Cape Verde, you've never heard of the population. You never heard of this sort of debacle, of this sort of nonsense that happened in Liberia time and time and again, where armed police and troops are always out there pushing protesters back. You never hear of this in Cape Verde. So they are doing something that's teaching, that should be a lesson for the rest of Africa, for those dictators in Africa who are sitting there using brutal force to suppress their own people. You have an African country. Again, we bring up Cape Verde because it seemed like for the last 3 episodes, we were down on Africa. We sounded to some people like a Debbie Downer, like, we were really beating Africa. We were beating up on these dictators like Paul Biya, dictators like Suluhu Hassan, dictators, people with dictatorial tendencies like Alassane Ouattara, who's, clearing the field for himself and continues to run again and again. You don't have that in Cape Verde. So we bring the example again of a true democracy, of a democracy that's responsive to the needs of the Cape Verdean people. You're talking about a country of 500,000 people. You're talking about a very small country of 4,000 square miles, a very small country, and yet with one of the highest literacy rates in the world. Forget Africa. You're talking about a country with one of the highest GDP per capita in Africa, or perhaps in the world. Forget Africa. You're talking about a country that's one of the most stable countries in the world. So if I'm a member of the Liberian legislature, I'm packing my bag tomorrow morning, I'm putting a group together, and we're heading over there. We're going to learn democracy. We're going to learn what's going on down there. Okay? If I'm a member of the executive, I'm putting together a proposal to go over there and learn what they're doing with the hope of applying this to our own experiment, which is very imperfect, which is very crooked, at best, which is really after all these years, we take one step forward and 200 steps backwards. But you have a very young country in Cape Verde that has demonstrated that not only election is not the only thing that makes a country a true democracy, but how responsive the people are to the needs of how responsive the government is to the needs of the people, how responsive the government is, how respected the Constitution is. You honor the Constitution, respond to the needs of the people. All of these are ingredients of the democratic process, of democracy, and it's a process, and that process is respected in the Republic of Cape Verde.
Well said, comrade. And I think we must add, I know you are trying to say, well, this may not be significant. They qualify for the World Cup, you said, right?
Right.
That is significant. This is a small country. Got independent 1975. We've had independence since 1847. All right. We produced the only African best, and he was in power. We could not get qualified for the World Cup.
Right.
Yes, the other important piece I want to add, comrade.
Yes.
You know that Unity Party gave up Richard Kuhn as speaker as though he was going to do any better. Now, they just passed the budget in a tune of 1.2 billion. Do you know how much the speaker our president, our entire political leadership set aside for our national team
Yeah.
is single 1 million. Out of
Oh my
1.2
God.
billion,
Oh my
they
God.
set aside the Lone Star of Liberia
Oh my
is single 1 pitiful million. And guess what, comrade?
Unbelievable.
United Party people are celebrating. They are taking off their clothes in celebration.
Mm.
They are hailing our leaders
Wow.
that they has never been done before.
Wow.
A pitiful $1 million has been allotted for our national team.
Unbelievable.
And
Can
guess
I
what? If you
can I
put the president,
yeah,
the speaker, and the pro tem together, these three individuals,
yeah.
they are over the three of them budget is about 37 million. But
Yeah,
then they
tell me
give
about
1 million to our Lone Star,
it.
and our brothers and sisters want us to clap.
They're multi-millionaires. Can I say something
Please.
that's not Cuba related, but Liberia? So when President Doe was in office, right? President Doe. So I'm just saying this to show you that the proof of any athletic programs is in the efforts and the consistency of the leadership.
Right.
So, for example, those show us that if a leadership is committed to athletic programs, if a leadership put money behind their athletic programs, that program or those programs in the country, whether it's soccer, whether it's basketball, whether it's whatever, those programs will only rise because those 10 years, what they show us at the time was because of those efforts, the Lone Star became relevant on the African continent. I remember a time there was Operation Eliminate Ghana, and Liberia beat Ghana in Monrovia. Anybody remember that? Liberia went to Accra. The national team Lone Star went to Accra and drew with the Black Stars of Ghana. And they came to Monrovia. And this was called Operation Eliminate Ghana. I think they were playing for World Cup qualification or African Cup of Nation qualification, something along those lines. I don't quite remember now. It's been several years. So they beat Ghana. And then it was Egypt. So they went to Cairo. I think they drew with Egypt, something like that. And they came to Monrovia. Comrade Anthony, this was something.
The Pharaohs.
Operation Blast Egypt, where George Weah scored the first goal and James Deba scored the second goal. And Egypt was beating that day. It was, and Doe went to the executive mansion. Okay. Doe said tomorrow is holiday and we didn't go to school. Okay. But I'm just saying, the brother put money behind sports. He took the team to Brazil to train them. When Morocco came and beat the Lone Star in those, I think it was first or second year as president, he took this whole team to Morocco so that he said the people that beat us, they're going to help train us. The thing they know, we don't know. I'm just saying, practical realities like that. Your team will rise based on how much you put into your athletic program. They're not putting anything into the athletic program. It's a joke, okay? They're not serious. So the country is going to be a laughing stock in all arenas, in the arena of sports. You're not there already. Where are we? Where is Liberia? What can Liberia be proud of? Is what I'm trying to ask here. Tonight we're discussing a very small country. I continue to say very small, right? It's like, I'm repeating myself over and over, but it has to be said that Cape Verde all of a sudden has gained some relevance in terms of, you asked a question about the youth. Soccer is a big thing on the island. Soccer is a big thing now. And they have not only qualified for the World Cup, but I believe they were in the last African Cup of Nations. I'll have to double check that. I think they were in the last African Cup of Nations. They were. I remember now. They were in the last African Cup of Nations. And when was the last time Liberia ever went to the African Cup of Nations? And George Weah dragged the team 2 times to the African Cup of Nations, and that was it. That's it. And meanwhile, the same Weah became president, and he did nothing for the soccer program. Okay, so that's what we're talking about. And these things, they've got to do something for Liberia. The reason why we're here tonight trying to discuss, we're taking country by country, so that it's a tale for us to learn from this. We can learn from this. Liberians can learn from this. Liberians can learn from what we've learned about all these other different countries that we're discussing, whether it's in the area of democracy, whether it's in the area of economics, whether it's in the area of sports or whatever it is out there, social events and activities of that nature. We can learn from our own African brothers and sisters on the continent. We don't have to go to Asia to learn from Asians. We don't have to go to Europe to learn from Europeans. We don't have to come to the United States and learn from the Americans. We can stay right there on the continent of Africa and learn from our own African brothers and sisters. And that is our goal. Our goal is, to make sure that we're doing the work that's necessary. We're putting in time. We're doing the research that's necessary to bring the relevant information to our people's doorsteps. Because several years ago, perhaps, 2 decades ago, I learned that the world is becoming a global village. This global village where you and I are here in the United States, and as we communicate, as we convey this information, people across the globe are getting the same information in real time. So our effort here is to ensure that because we are a global village, our effort here is to teach our people the things that need to be taught so that our people will learn these things. Even those who will disagree with us, it is our hope that they will find some values in the information that we've provided on this platform, that we're going to continue to provide on this platform.
Comrade, thank you. And folks who have been following us, this is Focus on Liberia. We are on the program Roundtable Africa, where we look at African issues. Our focus of this series is to look at democracy, political governance, the economies of our fellow African countries, to see what we can learn, what are they doing better, to learn from them so that we can improve governance, so we can improve our democracy, strengthen our economy, place emphasis on our most essential resource, which is the human resource in Liberia. Is not that they are all Zogos now. We're talking about Cape Verde that has an overall literacy rate of 91%. Liberia, according to Darius Dillon, is in a toilet, and he's at the Senate, and he's boasting about allotting just pitiful $35 million for the University of Liberia. And he knows the university is a national shame and disgraced. But he's celebrating a $35 million for our flagship university. He's not a serious senator to think about, right? But we hope as our leader listening to this presentation, this analysis, they will be informed. They will humble themselves better and say, look, our brothers are telling us the truth. It is time for us to adjust. It's in our collective national interest to do so. Comrade Jimmy, you will do your closing, and then our presenter.
And Jimmy, before you come in, please let me just convey this thought. So for those out there who are saying it's an unfair comparison because Cape Verde has 500,000 people and we have 5 to 6 million people in Liberia, no, it is a fair comparison. At some point, Liberia's population was, according to census data, several decades ago, was 1.5 million, 2.5 million people. They've still not done anything better, even with the smaller population that they had, 50 years ago, 60 years ago. The population has grown now to this astronomical number of people. They're still not doing anything better with the more people that they have. Look at China. So you saying that there's no fair comparison? Why are the Chinese able to feed themselves? 1 billion people on this continent, on the
And
Asian continent. Why
don't
are they
forget
able to
India.
feed themselves? Don't forget India. The other day I was in India. These people in India, they're feeding themselves. Why are they able to do that? And you have 5 million people and you can't feed your people. You have 5 million people and all of your counties, is dirt all over the place. You don't have good roads. You have nothing but corruption. You can't drive from point A to point B without the president flying over in some kind of private helicopter. There was a time that we had leaders who were driving from Monrovia to, Sanicoli. People can't even do that anymore. There was a time that we had leaders who were going to these villages. These are the leaders that we have now. They can't do that anymore because there's dirt all over the place. They're not building bridges. They're not doing any of this. There are bridges when I was a child, that wasn't built, creeks and stuff that are still there. Why is that? Because they're not responsive to the needs of the people. And you have other countries. You have a small country like Cape Verde. The leaders are responsive to the needs of their people, of the Cape Verdean people. It doesn't matter. Your population doesn't matter. You have a rich variety of resources underneath the earth. Liberia is one of the wealthiest countries in Africa. You have diamond, you have iron ore, you have rubber, you have timber, you have all these things. The rubber that our people tap every day, you don't have a factory to manufacture soccer. Soccer is what we love. We can't even manufacture our own soccer or footballs. We can't even manufacture latest gloves in Liberia. What a shame. What a disgrace. Okay. We have, at one point, Anthony, we had sugar factory called Lipsuko in Maryland County, in Kipamas. Where is Lipsuko? Where is Matches Factory? Where is Shoes Factory? Where are these factories? You've gone back 200 years, Liberians, and you don't care about that, and you're an intellectual and you can't question your leaders about this. Shame on you for not questioning your leaders about the disappearance of all these factories. Meanwhile, the corruption is eating away at the social fabric of the Liberian state. All we have is recycling of the same old failed politicians. And we look at other countries, and it's a shame that some of these other countries that we're going to be discussing, good democracies, very responsive to the needs of their people. People are stable, they're happier, they're living longer. Check the life expectancy rate in this country, Cape Verde. I think it's about 65 to 70 years. So, people can actually die old there. But in Liberia, I think it's like male is 40 years. So if some of us were still around it, we've long past that age. We'll be dead out. Okay. That's what I'm talking about. That's what I'm saying. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, we Liberians, we will have to ask ourselves existential questions. Okay, there was a big rejoice in 1980 when the True Whig Party was overthrown. Fine. There were people marginalized our people. They were dominated by the political power, dominated by one set of people.
But Jimmy, I don't even want to hear that no more. Jimmy, I don't
wait. Let me land now.
Yeah.
Give me a chance to let me land. Okay. So we got the power. But
right.
Have we ever asked ourselves, what are we supposed to do with the power?
Right.
Because that is the question we have not answered after. It's been 20. How many years it's been since?
Right. Maybe 30 years.
45 years.
Yeah. Yes. Absolutely.
What are we supposed to do with this power now that we have it? Okay. Yes, you wanted power. You got it. What are you supposed to do with it? I'm gonna do one more two. What does the country, the state, what does it owe each and every citizen of Liberia? What does the country owe each one of us?
Right.
Okay. And the third question, what behavior is unacceptable no matter who commits it?
Thank
Because
you.
if we haven't answered those questions, people will be repeating these things. Because so long as it's our duty that doing it, or our cousin or friend that doing it, it's okay.
Right.
And that is not what we wanted power for. We wanted power to make a change for everybody in the country, to not just a group. So I mean, there's some things we have not gripped, and until we do, we'll be repeating. It will be all about patronage, who gets the spoils, entitlement, and that's all it's going to be about.
Yeah.
You know, all this. When you win the presidency, you want to no. The country gave you power to do something for them. You didn't win anything. That's how you're supposed to look at it.
Yes.
If if you're not accomplishing it, and you're not doing the job.
It's what is the argument I made last time, right? People will keep beating on the people. It's the people's fault. It's the people's fault. But at some point, and I understand both sides, right? I understand both sides. I have been very, how do you say it? Maybe the best way to say it without sugarcoating is I have been angry at the Liberian people for a long time. I was angry for people who celebrated every time I watched the video of people who celebrated brutality in 1980 when people were shot dead, on poles. I was angry when I read Liberian history about the invasion of Cool Coast by earlier governments. When they invaded. J.J. Roberts was part of the militia that went to put down rebellions in the southeast. So I was angry by that. I was angry by the incident in 1916. I was angry by several incidents that I studied, that I was made aware of based on my research. So I was angry. I have been angry at several things that have gone on. But at the same time, here we are, that after all of that, we have not had.
And Comrade, don't forget the recent war, the Civil War.
The Civil War too, the Civil War. So I was angry at that. But we have not had that one leader who will rise now to say, enough is enough. And this is where we're going to start. We're going to start from here. Look at the Constitution. Look at the Constitution. Taylor fought Dole to bring a whole new system. And yet he left the Constitution intact. The NPP won the majority in 1997. If they wanted to change this whole Constitution, they would have changed our Constitution in 98. But they left that Constitution intact because it was not favorable to him to change anything in there, because that so-called revolution was not a real revolution. It was about revenge. It was about killing people. Then he goes away. 2005, 2006, Ellen Johnson Sirleaf came in. Ellen Johnson, an opponent of Samuel Doe. A person who would have come in and say enough, change the whole thing around. But we left that Constitution intact. That flawed Constitution of Samuel Doe's author Constitution. We left that intact. Everything, for the most part, was left intact, including the presidential term, the term of members, the senators, when you should have reduced some of this, when you should take out all of the clemencies that you granted to PRC members. But you didn't do any of this. You left that constitution intact. And today, Barca is still rolling with that same constitution. Nothing has changed. So what has changed are the players. The system has never changed. So who is going to change the Liberian system, so that it's congruent with responsiveness to the people? And one of the themes, Comrade Anthony, that we've talked about tonight is we have a government on the island of Cape Verde that's responsive, very responsive to the needs of the people. I don't care how many people there are, 500,000 people. I don't care about the number they have. They could have been a failure, okay? Even with that number, they could have been a failure, but they choose not to fail. So that is an example. Instead of saying that it is not fair to compare ourselves with them, no, it is fair. In fact, you're doing worse because you have more resources than those people. You have more farmland than Cape Verde. Why aren't you growing your own food? Why are you continuing to import, food from China, rice from China, 1 billion people? Why are you continuing to import rice from India? Why are you importing rice from Taiwan? If you have relations, they keep going back and forth with Taiwan. When China give them money, and Taiwan give them money, they'll go to Taiwan. When China give them money, they'll go to China. So why are you doing this? Why are you importing rice from the United States? If I'm in the executive, if I'm a political advisor to the president, I will sit in the room with the president and say, Mr. President, we need to answer these tough questions. I want you on a weekly basis to go out there and address the Liberian people that your administration is going to be different, that you're going to be a food exporter and not an importer anymore in the next 2 years, that we're going to be an exporter nation. We're going to take people from the urban areas and send them to the rural areas to teach. We're going to take people from the urban areas, send them to the rural areas to make farms. Cabral was teaching people how to make farms, how to feed themselves, because he was an agronomist. Mwalimu Julius Nyerere was teaching people, was teaching Tanzanians self-sufficiency, national identity, and loving oneself. We're lacking that in Liberia. So one of your questions was the foundation. Where did these people get these foundations? So historically, they have these foundations from certain leaders. That's why I say it's important to have the requisite leadership. Leaders that are conscious. Leaders that have the revolutionary mindset, that love their people. But you have leaders now on the African continent, specifically, I'm going to be specific to Liberia, that love wealth more than their own people. And that is the real issue. That is the real issue. If you love wealth, of course, everything that you do is going to be in search of wealth. You don't love your people because you love the trappings of power. It's all about power. You love the private jet. You love the big hotels. And all the ministers will come around. Mr. President, Mr. Vice President, people will come around. The women will come around. They'll rub your head. They'll do. I mean, this is the thing that is damaging our countries, because you have time and time and again, you have leaders who are not committed to anything. Their only love is the trappings of power, money, the wealth, the power that comes with that wealth, women, all the different things that come with power is what our people are interested in. They're not interested in the service of country. They're interested in self. And because of that, we're not going to advance. And I will suggest, in order to advance, You take pride out of this. You learn from other African countries. No matter how small Cape Verde is, Liberia can learn a useful lesson from Cape Verde. And certainly, those who are watching and conscious can do further studies on this. Those who care about democracy, those who care about their country, as we do care, will continue to study these other countries and see what they're doing better. And this is how you develop your country. I will land on this thought. President William R. Tolbert, when he built these housing estates, I understand that President Tolbert came to the States and looked at certain housing estates in certain places, in places like Philadelphia, in certain places in the South. He looked at these housing projects for middle-income people, for low-income people, and he said, I'm going to replicate this in my country. And he started to build these housing estates. So if you look today, even today, 5 decades later, these housing estates remain some of the most important projects of the Tolbert era. Can anyone contradict that? Nobody can contradict that. You know what? Some of the ministers, some of the ambassadors, some of the commanders in the military, when I was going to LD, I used to see people, officials of government, living in these housing estates. They are benefiting from these housing estates. They're benefiting, even though they're criticizing Mr. Tolbert, but they're living in the housing estates that Mr. Tolbert built for the poor people, for middle-income people. Some of them, the ministers, some of the presidents that we have, they put their girlfriends in these housing estates. They put their brothers and sisters in these housing estates. So if you will, why don't you, if you love it so much, why don't you replicate Tolbert's experiment in all the other counties, in Bunk County, in Grand Jetta County, in Maryland County, in Sano County, build housing estates all over the place for low-income people. So sometimes it takes an individual to do these things. It takes an individual leader to do these things. It doesn't have to take everybody. Sometimes it takes a leader who's committed to a cause, a visionary leader. We don't have any more visionary leaders. We have people who are self-seeking, who want to amass all the wealth of the country. And that's what we have now.
Comrade, thank you so much for your presentation analysis and your answers to our questions. I think we have been able to deal with this topic in a very significant way. We provided solid education, and you are right, you ended strongly there. It is about a leader having a vision and thinking about how they can improve something in the country, how they can solve a problem, and that they know what problem to solve, how to solve it, and they find the money to do it. Tolbert was one such person. And I will crystallize that with the ministerial complex in Liberia that was built by Ellen Johnson Sirleaf. I believe either the Japanese gave us about, I think they said $65 million, if I'm not mistaken. It is the only building now, almost everything happens in Liberia. Everything in Liberia happens at the EJS ministerial complex. It was built with money given to us by a foreign country. They did a design, they found the money, built it for us, and turned it over to us. Even the management of that building, to maintain it, the maintenance of that building is like 30%. It is terrible. But here's the part I want everybody to take away from. So another group of people who are not even black like you, who are not even your relatives and family, build you a building that is hosting, I think, over 6 ministries and agencies.
Oh, wow.
We have not been able to build one. The people show us an example. We have not been able to build one. We could just go back to the very Japanese. Hey, you gave us $65 million, we built this. We have found our own 65. Or you know what? Can you build or 2, 3 more? We have money for one now, and we can get on a payment plan for the rest. But it's not going to happen, comrade.
It's not.
What's going to happen? We're going to see that there is a villa now in Foya, and there's no explanation. We're going to see now there is a Thomas Farah University, and there's no University of Liberia, right? We have to leave it there. Gentlemen, thank you for your time. And to our audience, thank you. This is.
We still got 1 minute. I just want to add something. I like what Manju 55 say. He said he can't.
That's our good friend Joe Moyo. Go ahead.
Yeah, the whole idea is we have the power. We always thinking it's the leader is we, but we don't act. Some of us run away. We the brain dream. We run away. We in America, living a decent life, and anytime we go home, say those people not ready. So then, who are doing now? We have to. We are the power of the people. We have to change our mindset and get somebody who will do what we want them to do. We can't be playing this victim role. We ain't get no good leader. We can't get nobody to change it. When will we say, if you don't do this, you will move from there tomorrow? When are we going to do that? And I'll leave it right there.
Jimmy, thank you. And you said it right. And we are playing our part. We are miles away, millions of miles away, if I'm not mistaken. But we are providing nationalistic and patriotic consciousness that can get us to where you're talking about. It is not only for the young ones, but for our current leadership. We are doing that, right? That is the most profound contribution we can make, because we can elect any leader. But if they don't have, all right, the mind frame that would get us to where we want to go, it will be a disaster, as it has been a monumental disappointment.
Right.
And so this consciousness is profound, because we can even have all the money that we're talking about, the Ellen Johnson Sally Ministerial Complex. Don't we have that? What is the maintenance of that building? Near zero. So even it will be all the skyscrapers, we don't have a citizen rate. We don't have the kind of leadership that is conscious enough to provide the kind of leadership to maintain these things. They will be at our own peril.
Yes.
And so I rest my case. The song that says, "We are all Liberians," is taking us home. We will alert you another time. We throw our focus on another African country. And the goal here is to see what our friends are doing. As our chief presenter, Comrade Mohammed Sharif, said, why are they doing better that we can pick up from them? If they are Africans and they are doing better, why can't we? We have so much, far more than most of the African countries. And you look at our history, much more profound. We should be making billions in tourism right now just because of our history.
Yes.
Now, Cape Verde, a country with a population about 500,000, is even making more money than Liberia, which I think is not serving us well. The song says we are all Liberians, and until we catch you again, enjoy yourself. We love you all, and bye-bye.
Thank you.
We are Liberians. Liberia is our home. Liberian people.